Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well, today I am in mourning for the death of Meghan and Harry's reputation. So sad. Destroyed by Julien Duponchel, Guillaume Beaufils, Svani Thibault, Julie Martin, and Benoit Sauvage on a program called Envoye Speciale. But I'm not going to ruin the fun, so I'm going to plunge right in with the question from Jenny Chilton, which goes as follows. Dear Lady C, as you lived in France, you may be aware of the investigative program Envoye Speciale. I certainly am. They've broadcast an investigation into Arcwell, or as Meghan and Harry and their people will insist on mispronouncing it, Archewell, quite forgetting that CH followed by a vowel is the K sound, not the CH sound. Seems people are waking up at last. Yes, Jenny Chilton, it does. Sadly, so far, there is a very little in the British or American press to pick it up. Oh dear, I wonder why. Isn't it ironic that it is the French with very stern, solid, almost unbreakable privacy laws who have mounted this tremendous investigation of Harry and Meghan's activities through the organization that they erroneously pronounce as Archwell. Well, Envoye Speciale has done a very good job. Very good job. They have been penetrating. They went to California. They even went to the offices. Totally empty. No sign of life, no sign of activity. The tableau vivant version of a shell company, or a shell company's office, to be more accurate. Of course, they were shown the door, but they did a very penetrating analysis of Arcwell's activities, receipts, disbursements, and concluded that it's a little better than a money laundering. I would actually have to point out at this stage that the laws in the United States of America do allow rich people to wash their dollar bills so that they can avoid tax. Now, most countries have somewhat obliging tax laws so that the very rich can keep at least some of their money, because they are forced to give up quite a bit of it. In France, they are a lot less generous than even Uncle Sam. The fisc as it is known in France, is notorious. I can tell you, I know what I'm talking about. The fisc tried to get 60% of every penny I had inherited from my mother and my aunt, because I had a chateau in France at the time of their deaths. And I think I might have had a flat in Paris as well. I can't remember now. But anyway. And so they wanted to say that I was permanently resident in France and that my children were French residents. It fell by the by, not only because I was and remained a British tax resident, and because my primary residence was in England, in London. It was 45 Bourne Street at the time. But also because I had not yet bothered to apply for my children's British passports, so they had to enter France on their Jamaican passports, which meant that they had at all times to enter on a tourist visa. The French couldn't argue with the fact that the children were not resident in France because they could only enter on tourist visas. So 3 or 4 years and a considerable sum of money later, they backed off. But the French love everybody paying tax. They're even worse than Uncle Sam. So it doesn't surprise me that a French program of this nature and this repute would take an interest in the activities of Meghan and Harry, because as they make the point in the program, they're 90% of what they allege they have raised for charity didn't go to charity. It stayed in their account. And of some of the other findings, one was really very interesting, because it is also mentioned in Samantha Markle's lawsuit, a payment to a media company or a donation to a media company, I forget which one it is now, of I think it was $125,000, which turns out to be a company that has been harassing and abusing and trying to destroy Samantha's reputation. Oh dear, oh dear. Ooh, the tangled web we weave. Oh! Well, certainly anybody who's seen that program comes away with the impression that Harry and Meghan should actually start a laundry, because they're obviously very adept at laundering with an elaborate network of companies, all of which are delved into by the team. It's actually quite funny in parts. If, for instance, you see him swanning around these empty offices with absolutely no sign of human life. No clients, no workers, nobody. Just him and his cameraman. And then what happens? Lo and behold, somebody from security comes. And security rescues Meghan and Harry's reputation to the extent that the journalist is now able to say, washing, anybody want to take a little trip with some washing? We know how to launder. Yes, we do. Sue Bates says, Lady C, excellent spot on episode as usual. Thank you. What do you think of the French investigative journalist findings and their documentary on Arcwell? Could this be a big downfall we didn't see coming? I'm afraid not. The British and the American mainstream media are not going to be touching it with a barge pole at this point. But you know, if you're trying to collapse a wall from underneath the ground, every bit of earth you move weakens the edifice. But I don't think, to answer your question, Sue Bates, that this is going to make a scrap of difference at this point. Because as our bell-bottom says, and this I agree with, unfortunately, I would think that Arcwell, or as they mispronounce it, Archwell, they being Harry and Meghan and their people, and whatever other registered entities they have, are acting within the boundaries of the law. It's the laws that need to be tightened up. Well, you can hardly blame hustlers for taking advantage of loopholes in the law. I'm certainly not blaming them. Of course, people who present themselves as noble, self-sacrificing public servants who are there to serve humanity and one act of kindness and community at a time with security to match, might be accused of hypocrisy, that they take advantage of the law, and that if you examine their expenses, a suspicious amount of the expenses seem somehow related to Harry and Meghan and not charity. But is it the laws that need to be tightened up? Well, as long as they are taking legal advantage of the laws that allow them to slither through like slime and eels, you have an explanation, as to why this is not going to go anywhere at this point, because Harry and Meghan are clever enough to only break the laws that they can get away with. Ayahuasca. I'm pretty sure they are not so dumb as to break the laws that will get them into trouble with Uncle Sam. And let's face facts, Meghan has scratched and charmed and played her way up the ladder with such efficiency that you know that she knows every footstep to take on her trajectory upwards. I don't think she is dumb enough to break the law. But of course, breaking the treasured sacred bond with the public is another matter altogether, isn't it? Snap it. Linda Simpson says, I'm sad I miss Megawitch, bowing down to the Princess of Wales, Catherine. That would have made my year. Linda Simpson, you are very funny. Very funny. It would have made the year of many people. I think people would have even paid good money to see it. That, of course, is one of the humiliations that the courageous feminist who battles for equality and against misogyny and against privilege, especially white privilege, but make sure that my children are called prince and princess and I'm called duchess at all times. I think you get my point. Well, she's made sure that she's dodged that bullet. Because you see, Meghan, like all bullies, is basically gutless. Oh, she'll toughen up the skin when she needs to brazen her way through something. But in her day-to-day life, cowardly. She's the sort of person who throws the squib into the playground, bolts around the corner, waits for the explosion, saunters by to enjoy her handiwork, and maybe even offers to help the person who she has injured. And who knows, of her previous conduct of fingering innocents, maybe even fingers her victim as the perpetrator. TG says, it doesn't matter what MM does on Coronation Day. It's all short-term media gain. Even if she releases photos of the kids, etc., and gains a few competing headlines on the day, over time it will mean nothing. She is a flash in the pan. The coronation images will endure for many, many years to come as an historic event. Any 4-year-old birthday party photoshopped photos have interest only in a very narrow context of today, maybe tomorrow, but even by next month, not of interest to anyone, as her kids are on the spare line and as such represent the past, the branch that is destined to wither. TG, I don't know who you are, but your comment is brilliant. It's absolutely on point. You hit the bullseye totally. You have summarized the reality perfectly, and I could not forego reading this out. Congratulations. You have summarized it in a nutshell. And may I say, I know from my own personal experience of people whom I have known when I was younger who were tremendously famous and nobody even knows of nowadays, or very few people know of, and they are of passing interest. Fame, I have always said, is a very transient thing. The only famous people who remain famous, or have until recently, because of course with all the tampering that's being done with the history books, who knows who's going to end up being famous. But following the logic of the beginning of civilization until 20 years ago, there was a predictability as to who would have enduring fame. And it was people who had substance as well as fame. Some posthumous fame. Vincent van Gogh, for instance, is an example. posthumous fame, fame nevertheless. But fame in your lifetime, Napoleon, Augustus Caesar, Seneca, Plutarch, these are people whose fame has lasted. My children have no idea who Greta Garbo is. Yet, she was one of the most famous people in the first 3/4 of the 20th century. Very few people outside of movie aficionados would have any idea who Louise Brooks was. Harry and Meghan, they are going to be a footnote. Unless, of course, she achieves her ambition, which some people think she possesses, of bringing down the monarchy. I don't think that's her ambition, actually. I think she's just a cheap and vulgar hustler who wants it all for herself and can't think beyond herself. And if she brought down the monarchy, that would be a feather in her cap, but only if she could make money out of it. Corinne Lavigne says, "Hello, Lady C. The front page headline of the Sunday Express today, 'The royal family is on the brink of collapse,' brought to mind comments you have made in a previous video when you disagreed with King Charles' pursuit of a slimmed-down monarchy. Once again, it seems you have been proved right. The article, based on a recent research by Civitas, I insert, points out that the royal family are attending 40% less engagements than a decade ago, and that the royal family is in danger of abolishing itself by stealth by spending less time engaging with the people of Britain. Considering that quite a few working royals are well past retirement age, and with the loss of both Harry and Andrew, who could King Charles add to his team? Could Beatrice and husband be a possibility? Maybe Lady Louise? I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you for all you do." Well, yes, I was actually also on GB News the other evening covering this. I have been saying this for years. It was short-sighted in the extreme. Anybody who did charity work, anybody, should have been able to figure it out. Charles has done excellent charity work with the Prince's Trust, but dare I say it, Charles is taking a very limited view of things. Charles, like most princes and kings, is quite protected. Now, his father, who had a very checkered past, was very pragmatic and not egotistical. Charles, for all his virtues, has a streak of vanity that his father and his mother did not have. And Charles has confused the success of the Prince's Trust with the needs of all other charities. And that's just one string to the royal bow, where you have people like the Duke of Kent, who's batting 90, Princess Alexandra, who I think was born in 1930s. Well, I think she's 86. The Duke and Duchess of Gloucester, I think, respectively 78 and 76. I mean, these people are all past retirement age, as indeed are the King and the Queen. Harry, forget him. William and Catherine have a few years to go. But even Edward is coming up for retirement age in the not too distant future, another decade. Sophie, same thing. There is no doubt in my mind that Charles is going to do irretrievable damage to the royal family and the institution of the monarchy if he does not appreciate the fact that a royal family has to be seen to be working, not a handful of people. He is confusing Britain with Denmark. Denmark is a small country with a tiny population. Denmark's entire population is less than half the size of London's population. That should give you some idea of the differentials that Charles should be bringing into play. Both he and William surround themselves with people who are very cutting edge progressive. A case in point is Simon Case, now the cabinet secretary, who is so touchy-feely and bleeding heart that he exulted in the distress of first-class passengers being put into poky rooms in fifth-rate hotels, while he was thrilled that immigrants who have entered this country illegally would be in five-star hotels in suites. I mean, is that a constructive and a positive and a productive attitude to have? Are these productive people to have around you? I would say no. Now, they have some good advisors, but they also have some very ropey advisors. And also, Charles doesn't like hearing a no. The Queen didn't mind hearing no. Charles is very opinionated. I think they need to rope in Beatrice and Eugenie. I think we need to have Prince James of Edinburgh, who is now called the Earl of Wessex, and we need to have Princess Louise of Edinburgh. I think we need at least those four royals. People suggest Zara and Peter Phillips. They're not royal unless Charles is going to issue letters patent making the female members of the family capable of passing royal status down to their children. They're not royal. They're never going to be royal. You can't have non-royals functioning as royals. I think he has made a terrible mistake. I've said it all along. I've been saying for years. Once he slims down the monarchy, what happens if there's a problem with William or Harry? Well, there's turned out to be a problem with Harry. You know, most royal duties are boring. I can tell you. I've seen it with my own two eyes. 98% of what they do is worthy and dull to the extreme. Diana used to say, not another boring, and the word begins with F, mayor. Well, that's what they do 98% of the time. You only get the 2% of the time that is times that would be glamorous. Everything else is not reported upon. But people know they go to a school in Birkenhead. Everybody knows. This is how you maintain support for a monarchy. Somebody is organising a charity ball or a theatre event or any fundraiser, and they ask a royal to come, and a royal comes, the tickets fly. No royal, not so easy for tickets to shift, unless you are in your own right as an organiser a major public figure. And most major public figures are too busy tending their own garden to be doing substitute royal work. The whole thing is stupid. It is stupid, it is silly, it is counterproductive, it is ultimately destructive. Will he change his mind? I understand he's quite obstinate. But let's see. Maybe if William manages to accede to the throne, he will have seen the error of Charles's ways, because too slim is a big problem. Humans need the same thing that institutions need: sustenance. And if you starve them of sustenance, don't be surprised when they keel over. Rhonda loves says, "Dear Lady C, I saw your recent visit on GB News with Mark Dolan." That's where I was speaking about Charles's stupidity in doing certain things in terms of the coronation, as well as slimming down the monarchy too much. I agree with you that the king is scaling back the coronation too much. You mentioned seating people in bleachers. Do you think that there is enough time for the king to change his mind and invite more people to the event? I wish that he would. Thank you. Well, Rhonda loves. I was really saying that, you can build temporary seating and it would only cost tens of thousands of pounds. And they should have had at least another 2,000 people there, if not more. The Queen had 8,000. Charles is having 2. That, I'm afraid, is rather too dramatic a reduction. And for a small outlay, he could have made the event more spectacular, more traditional, while updating it. The thing about a monarchy is it is a link in the present from the past to the future. If you start to erase too much of the past, you're beginning to erase the reason why you exist altogether. You also begin to make yourself irrelevant and invisible. He has caused a tremendous amount of resentment amongst all different categories of people who would normally have been asked to the coronation and should have been asked. For instance, parliamentarians aren't allowed to take their partners. I mean, excuse me, what is this? It's a joke. And there are only 20-something non-royal dukes. Practically none of them has been asked, so that he can, have all focal splendour upon himself, or Is it going to be that he doesn't want the criticism that the monarchy is still supported by the very people that put him and his family against the rightful monarch's interests into power? Whole thing is really very, very, very short-sighted. But Charles is evidently very obstinate and has his own ideas. Now, I have no doubt, because he's got brilliant taste in many ways, that it's still going to be an interesting occasion. But he needs to take a leaf out of other people's lesson book, which they haven't learned either. Why make needless adversaries of people who want to be your friends? Why antagonize those who want to support you? Why show contempt and show that you regard them as totally irrelevant when they actually still have relevance? I mean, 22 dukes, or 23, I forget how many it is. I think it's 22 non-royal dukes at the moment. Practically none has been asked. None. And do we seriously believe that all those parliamentarians whose spouses spend most of their lives sacrificing, because being an MP or a House of Lords spouse is no fun, because you very seldom see your spouse if they are active parliamentarians. Why deprive them of the perks when you could have put in extra seats? And I don't care if he's offended, and I don't care who else is offended. I know sufficient people who think that this is totally counterproductive, and I agree with them. Well, no matter how successful it is on the day, he has created ill will and bad feeling where there needed to be none. Bonnie Nupson says, I wish you would touch more on Meghan convincing Harry she has psychic powers. The fact that he appears to believe that she receives messages from Diana. She does. H, I'm communing with your mom on the grave. I'm on her grave and I'm communing with your mom. And she's giving, yes, she's saying, H, it's the best thing you ever did was marry me, because she's living through us now again. And you've got a chance, H, to revive all those feelings you lost and to protect me, because you are too young to protect her, and you can protect me. Oh, that's shocking. Oh, shocking. What is it? What is it, Meg? What is it? Oh, H. She's so overjoyed that we got it, that it shocked me. I felt an electrical current going through my body, like when you and I are, but we can't say it on YouTube. Oh, like when we're roasting chickens. Let me continue with the question. Sorry, I got sidetracked with the ridiculousness of the whole scenario. I think that this aspect that she receives messages from Diana and her delving into alternate spirituality. Santeria! Santeria! I'm 86% Nigerian. Yes, I am. Maybe the wrong country, but still. I get confused by all those things that I believe in. You know? Now, what's it? Obia's Jamaican, and I won't have anything to do with Jamaica. Not after those horrid Jamaicans don't love me. Chief of which is someone I'm not going to mention her name. Anyway, to be a little bit more serious. The fact that he appears to believe that she receives messages from Diana and her delving into alternate spirituality. Sorry, I need to stop again. Aurora, I beg of you. Come here, honey. Come here. Go and bring that doll for me. And the pins. I need to demonstrate how Megsy Baby likes to stick pins in dolls. If not actually the metaphorical variant. I think that this aspect has a huge influence on his control of her. Sorry, on her control of him. Sorry. I am getting myself in a muddle now. Let me be sensible. I think that this aspect has a huge influence on her control of him, even to the point that she has appeared to convince him she replicates Diana, hence the hand holding like Diana used to hold his. The bogus, and she mentions a word which I will not mention, but is a one word for terminating one's existence, oneself. Claim, the victim claim, fragrances, she uses another word which I'm not going to use because this is YouTube. So I'll use the more polite term of it. Emasculating the media while stealthily using them to her advantage. All those are triggers for Harry for her to gain mind control. She's convinced him she really is a goddess in every form of the word. Hocus pocus from Doria. Well, I'm afraid you're onto something. The full extent, I don't think, is something anyone except the participants will ever completely appreciate. But you are onto something. And it, in my opinion, is ghoulish in the extreme. That somebody could gain such an ascendancy over someone else. Because even if her motives were not worldly and financial, even if they were supposedly love, anybody who is responsible and loves somebody else does not devour their soul, does not occupy their being, does not take over their identity and remold it. That is very destructive behavior. And there is ample evidence for the fact that a lot of this has gone on. Too much has gone on. Has Doria helped? Well, I have to tell you, just the little glimpse that I got of her on that Netflix program tells me that she's right up to here with it. Up to here. Racism. Everything's racism. Nix76 says, "What a beautiful brooch. You are looking particularly chic today." That must be when I wore the peacock brooch. Several people commented upon it very positively. "Would you be able to expand on the reasons for the non-royal dukes not being invited to the coronation?" Yes, I will tell you what many of the ducal families have concluded, because there are not many ducal families, and they sort of do spill over and know each other. Well, some people think Charles doesn't want to give the message that he is supported by anybody except the ordinary people. However, I have been told from many ordinary people that they love the splendor of it all. They love the glamour. They wanted to see the dukes in their ceremonial robes and their coronets, and their duchesses in their splendid, mostly white or light coloured gowns with their ceremonial robes. They wanted to see it. Well, they're not going to see it. Is it vanity? Is it hard-headed politicization, which is what a lot of people think it is? Or has Charles decided that the aristocracy is totally irrelevant, and to such an extent that the segment of the aristocratic population that was always regarded as just below royalty, and that still plays a huge part in this country in terms of owning estates, supporting local communities, there are many speculations as to why he has done it. The one thing everyone agrees upon is he shouldn't have done it. But many people think he's so woke that he doesn't understand that ignoring his supporters might help to bring about woke equals broke. Who knows what his real reasons are? My personal instinct is they are a combination of hard-headed, calculated, we don't want to antagonize people in hostels, and therefore we're going to downplay the splendor, as well as, but everybody's gonna see me. I'm gonna be looking really splendid. Rather too much me seems to be coming to the fore, and maybe I'm doing him an injustice. But this is what people are saying, and they don't like it. And it really is not politic at the beginning of a reign to be antagonizing people who have put you in the position that you are in. Aside from anything else, it smacks of ingratitude. And it also shows that he doesn't really appreciate the fact that the British people want a monarchy that changes slowly but remains relevant and reliable. And what possible disadvantage would there have been to having the dukes and the duchesses at the coronation? It's few enough of them. Instead of which, he has asked, after the cut-off point, people who have been allocated charity tickets, and somebody said no, to find a substitute. Is the coronation really going to be about a parade of worthy people alone who are ordinary, when it could have been a parade of worthy people who are ordinary and worthy people who are extraordinary? I say that for what it's worth. Mariana R. says, "Dear Lady C, first of all, your acting skills should be applauded. Thank you. Not everybody else agrees. Most of you seem to enjoy it. One or two people find that it gets on their nerves, and what can I say? I enjoy it, and I'm delighted that most of the people who comment seem to enjoy it as well. So I'm afraid to the one or two who don't like it, skip over. Sorry. It is a great part of the reason I watch." Oh, thank you very much. I do try to be entertaining. I love when you call upon the dogs to catch a flying pig or touch your head with a paw so your head can regain its size after a compliment. Oh, what a hoot. Thank you. Lady C, I believe, like many, I figured out Meghan from the very beginning. I thought she was out to catch the Todger at all costs. Have children and secure a lifelong attachment to the royal family. Now she has achieved her goals. I truly believe she's hatching up her plans to get rid of him. I already know what you think on this, but it still would be nice to hear a repeat with some added flavour. I need to invigorate myself, my dear. Being really wicked this afternoon. Sorry. Recent developments. Now I'm going to put aside all the rumours that have emanated from California about Harry and Meghan being separated, even if they are still making a show of being together. If they told me that they are standing in the family drawing room at Castle Goring, I would have to look outside to check to see that it really was true, that this really was Castle Goring. That's how skeptical I am of anything they say or do. Putting that aside, however, it has become very apparent to me that Meghan, by distancing herself from the royal show in more than one way, is creating the scenario for Harry to become expendable to her. If they are no longer a double act, he becomes irrelevant. He ceases to exist as a necessity. If, and this is a big if, she can pull it off successfully to stand on her own 2 feet without him. If she can't, she's going to need his presence. She's going to need his existence. She's going to need the food that he supplies her, because basically Meghan reminds me of my mother. And to me, Meghan is the classical narcissist. And everybody is there to be used and devoured and spat out as and when it suits her. And that includes Harry. And I note that of what I've been hearing and what I am seeing with my own 2 eyes, and especially in recent developments, that she is, whether she has forced herself into this predicament or not, she is in the situation whereby she cannot re-establish links with the royal family. She is anathema to them. Re-establishing a relationship with them from their point of view would be like the chief rabbi deciding he's going to have dinner with Adolf Hitler. It's that bad. Or if not quite that bad, approaching there. That's the enormity of it all. So she has effectively isolated herself. Did she do this deliberately? Or is this the unforeseen consequence of her moaning, groaning, complaining, and treachery, as some people would call it? Well, either way, it forces her to be distant from the royal family. And if she's distant from the royal family, and she can make a go of it, whether it's the tig, the stig, the dig, or the I'm going to teach you all about being a woman. I'm going to tell you how to be a true feminist. You nice workers, get me a banana so I can write on it. You are treasured. You are loved. You are respected. You are necessary. Yes, you are. If she can stand on her own 2 feet, it's only a matter of time before Harry becomes totally spare to needs. And going off her past, and also going off what happens with narcissists. If they can survive without you and they can take what you had to offer them, they'll jettison you. They will flush you the way Harry and Meghan have to constantly be flushing those 16 lavatories to get rid of all of the excrement that they excrete on a constant basis. That's my take on it. I'm not a fortune teller. I can't predict. I can only go off the consequences of character. And let us see what happens. But Meghan's failure to come to the coronation because she cannot, for practical reasons, allow herself to be exposed as the creature that is so reviled that she actually is. It tells me she no longer, the royal connection in reality is fading. Because does anybody in America really care that I'm a proud, confident woman of colour and a star of suits, and I'm a royal duchess, but I can't use my royal highness title, but I'm still royalty, and you've got to remember it. Do they care? I gather most people don't care. They care about the royal connection. And do they like Meghan? My understanding is she has revealed too much about herself. And I warned in my book, Meghan and Harry, the Real Story, that she had committed a fatal error of revealing too much about herself. And she has continued to perpetuate that mistake. And every time she opens up her mouth, she loses a few more supporters. And she can employ that media company that they paid $125,000 to, or whomever else they decide to come up with, to create bots and create the illusion that they're so popular and that everybody is hounding them when nobody is. I'm afraid the party's over, really. It's just that the music isn't off yet and the last guests haven't left. But the main guests have left. It's in decline. S. Scirocco says, Lady C, I don't think Megasucks will have a miscarriage. I think because she won't be going to the coronation, she will have a missed carriage. I had to read that out. It's so sweet. And Skip D says, people in the US need to understand as long as we fight against each other, then we are not watching our politicians. Politicians always stir up the crowd, so they are not looked at. There are plenty of politicians that don't deserve our trust. Skip D, I've read that out because I couldn't agree more. And I would say that politicians from all spectra politically. You have some good politicians, you have a whole load of rotten politicians. And yes, as long as divide and rule can be enacted, people are so busy fighting each other that they don't see that the system needs to be recalibrated. John Adams, the first American vice president, the second American president, the father of the sixth American president, with his cousin Sam, one of the signatories of the Declaration of Independence. He warned against partisanship, people dividing their loyalties and thereby losing sight of the main objective, which is for the society to be enhanced, for people to govern together to enhance their lives and the lives of others, and to put their real interests before the phony, fabricated interests of ambitious people who really are feathering their nest at the expense of everybody else. John Adams warned against it. I happen to admire John Adams greatly. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please remember, keep the questions and comments coming in, because I cannot do this without you. Okay? Thank you so much. God bless. And if you have enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care. Bye.